business is a risk. You don't 100% know what the success rate is going to be yet. There's a high failure rate of any business. Make sure you're adequately capitalized with resources. That's both money or monetary resources. It's also people.
So what is financing like?
Sure.
What are the solutions and how do we go about that?
Okay, so to me, there's only one kind of financing, and that's a loan structure of some. So you're borrowing money from some form of investor, whether it's a bank that's going to lend you money, it's a loan though. Or it could be a person giving you a private loan, maybe it's a corporation giving you a private loan. There's different forms of taking financing. Investment from investors, that is a different form of capital raise. And that is where you're not paying that money back on a monthly or weekly basis. What you're doing is you're paying back a share of your profit.
After the discussion with you, stage 2 is to walk up to a bank. What data are they looking at? What credit records are they pulling? Is it? I know you as Harvey, but I would like you to introduce yourself, give a bit more context to what you do on a daily basis, who your clients are, and just to give insights to the viewers today on who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thank you for having me today on the show. Jopamall, I call you JP all the time. I hope that's okay. But so my name is Harvey Dhillon. I'm a financing expert with Centum Mortgage Masters. We are a boutique brokerage, family owned, out in the West End in Ottawa, in Canada. My background is a mortgage agent. I'm a licensed mortgage agent, and I specialize in working with small business owners, both on real estate financing as well as business financing as well, where we leverage our financing partners, whether it's banks, credit unions, alternative lenders, to help you optimize the performance of your business to achieve your financial goals.
Awesome. So are you saying you work with, just to give clarity to what you said, you work with business owners, you said? You work with startups as well? Mm-hmm. And you work with anybody needing general knowledge on how to solve the financing aspect of business? Is that what you're saying you do?
That's my background, so my specialization is there. Okay. So I do traditional basic mortgages. If you're just a salaried individual working in the government, you want to buy a house, I can help you do that. But my expertise tends to fall more in with my business owners and helping to work with them to achieve their financing needs, because it's a little more specific and targeted, and sometimes you have to have a more unique and specialized approach to working with these clients that may have unique income structures, either for the personal financing or for their business financing.
So many startups would fail in their first couple years, and there's data to back this. What is like the one thing you feel they get wrong right off the bat with financing? Or what is like the one thing you would advise every startup or business owner to not make as a mistake that has happened over and over and over when clients eventually run to you for help or come to you for help?
Mm-hmm. That's actually a tough question. So business is a risk. Everyone's taking an investment with an idea, and we don't, especially if you're starting it up from scratch, we don't 100% know what the success rate is going to be yet. There's a high failure rate of any business. And that doesn't mean people shouldn't try. I think finding research and optimizing, I guess not operating, but lowering your risk level when you start a business. And the best piece of advice I could give for that would be to make sure you're adequately capitalized with resources. That's both money or monetary resources. It's also people. So if you're an individual and you're going to run a business that, you have to do not only operations, like let's say you're going to be a storefront, you're going to run the front store. You also have to do your shipping, your inventorying. You're going to have to do your ordering process. You're going to have to do your accounting. If you're one person, that's a lot of hats to wear. So if you have a team that can assist you, that's going to be beneficial. And the second part is going to be money. So, when you're starting a business, you burn through a lot of money very quickly, and making sure that you have an adequate financial backing to start your business, and then you're managing your burn rate, what we call burn rate, or how fast you're going through that money until revenue's coming in. These are areas where you can really help create a story of success, because that's where we see the most amount of businesses, the challenges is running out of money. And then you have to be creative as to how you buy more inventory or how you market your product line and services. These are really important. Make sure you have adequate funds to put towards all the areas of your business that need to thrive for the business to be successful.
Are you saying it's possible to actually, so as a business owner myself, I think of this and what comes to my mind is a good scenario would be like a runway, like imagine an airplane on the taxi trying to take off. Are you saying it's possible as a business owner to plan out a lifeline before, say, post profit or um, um, where you break even? Are you saying it's actually possible as a business owner to map out enough cash for that lifeline?
To a point. So you can't guarantee what your revenue incoming is going to be, but you can do your best to forecast your spend rates on what you're spending and how you're spending it. So making sure you're looking for example, quality partners that are going to give you value for money. So you're not necessarily going to the most expensive partner you're going to go to start off a business, unless you have capital for that. It's different. But if you don't have enough capital, then you need to kind of stretch that capital out.
So speaking about capital, because you mentioned capital, I know you mentioned you also work with financing, but are you saying capital is an amount you could go to the bank with? Because that's taking me to the next question on what's like financing like. So I
Sure.
come to you as an expert in solving the finance. Like you said, it's about having a team. It's about focusing on not trying to wear all the hats, right? Like delegating and having people around you who could handle maybe the financing. Like myself, like remember the conversation I
Hmm.
had with you. I think it's about 2 years, almost 2 years ago now, actually,
Yeah.
or a year ago,
Year ago. Yeah.
before starting this, right? So are you saying it is very important to outsource financing, like having a CFO off the bat, or just
No.
educating yourself as a
Uh,
single person?
it's just more in the planning. So I think just for the viewers, so capital to me means all forms of money that you're using to start your business. Okay, and that could be from money that you're putting in as a founder. It
Mhm.
could be coming from partnerships that you have with other founders that are going to join you on this venture. They're going to put in money as well. It could be from bank financing. Maybe right off the bat you have an equity partner. Maybe you have someone that's saying, "Hey, you guys run your business. You're putting some money in. I like your idea. I'm going to invest in you with shares." And that also is a form of equity raise, what we call equity raise, which is also going to be capital for the business to operate with.
Uh,
Whatever capital you have to maximize the lifespan of it to achieve your goal. So if you spend too much upfront, um, then it's very hard to recuperate, because once you've spent that money, you can't magically get it back unless you have revenue.
I feel you touched on some points, and I want us to be able, again, for the audience who are starting businesses or in businesses. So, um, back to financing. What are could you take it step by step? I'll do my best to take notes, and this would also be on the screens for viewers as
Mhm.
well. So you mentioned so many types of financing. I think you said something about equity, partnership. Could you just maybe let us go one after the other? So this is the next question as to what is financing like?
Sure.
What are the solutions, and how do we go about that?
Okay, so to me, there's only one kind of financing, and that's a loan structure of some. So you're borrowing money from some form of investor, whether it's a bank that's going to lend you money, is a loan though, or it could be a person giving you a private loan. Maybe it's a corporation giving you a private loan. There's different forms of taking financing. Investment from investors, that is a different form of capital raise, and that is where you're not paying that money back on a monthly or a weekly basis, like you would with a loan. So with a loan, you'll pay a fixed rate of interest or a variable rate of interest, and you will have a repayment plan for that money that was given to you. With an equity or a capital partner that's going to be a partner, or equity shareholder of your business, they're giving you money for performance. So they will take their money out. So you're not paying back an interest rate per se. What you're doing is you're paying back a share of your profits. So what if somebody owns 20% of your business, then they should theoretically get 20% of the profits you make as well,
Hmm.
over time. And but they have a say in how you manage your business potentially, or how
So,
you run your
so
business.
do so everybody. Just to break it off, I know there's still other things you want to say, but so are you saying for everybody that has equity in my company, which is they own they have a percentage ownership in the company,
Mhm.
that means whatever amount of money I make, they get that percentage of that money going to them.
Not always. So that's called a dividend, where you pay them a portion right off the bat.
Is it
But
monthly? So dividend you mentioned, is it monthly paying out of
no,
profits?
that's internally negotiated with your partner. So essentially, someone's going to invest in your business because they see a value of your business. They're going to see it grow, and they want to see their money
So
grow.
value.
Right now, how you share that value, how you share that growth, is between you and that investor. So, in some cases, there could be regular payments going to them, which is profit sharing. In other cases, the profit can be left in the company, and the company's value will grow, and then there'll be an exit for them at some point where they'll cash out their shares. Either you will buy them out, or maybe you guys will have even a bigger investor come in, and they will put in more capital, and then those investors that were already there can say, okay, well, either pay us out, we'll agree to a payout, or we will own a smaller percentage of the company, but the company's worth a lot more, so we're still making money, right? It's a form of growth. We have to have measurable targets to define what growth is, and that arrangement between any business and their investors is defined by their contractual shareholder agreement as to what the measure of in the investment is. When you give somebody shares, they're giving you money for something, and that has to be what that something is has to get negotiated between you and that investor.
Okay, so
Right.
so you're saying a contractual shares agreement dictates the amount of, number one, ownership
Correct.
they have in your company,
Correct.
and number two, how that value is exchanged in the long run.
Yeah.
Because as a business owner trying to start, I like now I see how it's very important to think about financing off the bat, because this is like very, very important decisions in the long run of the business, right?
Mhm.
So are you saying this comes later in the business, or this talk on how do I finance my business? How do I structure the financing of my business is something every business owner has to get from the beginning, or it's like an alive, like ongoing
It's an
thing?
ongoing. So it needs to be done at the beginning because every business has to start somehow. Like, for example, today we have individuals here helping us do the recording. Well, they have equipment they have to buy. How is that equipment going to be purchased? So maybe they're paying it for their own money. So they're self-investing at that point.
Hmm.
Okay.
Which is
Maybe
also a loan. Like you said, all form of financing is it boils down to almost a loan. It's either
it
somebody is
actually is.
loaning you the money or
It's an
you're loaning
actual
yourself.
accounting principle called shareholder loan. You're the sole shareholder of your company. You're loaning yourself money that the company is starting off with,
Do you need
and
to
that money comes
do
back
you
to you from the company
do
at
you
some
need to
point.
document that money? Because like
Correct.
I'm
It should
starting a
be.
business, and I'm just spending every day, right? I'm just like, oh, we need to buy this, like we need to buy this, we need to buy this. Are you saying I need a track record of my business
Yes.
expenses?
So I think it's maybe we should go back one step forward and talk about the legality of what a business is, right? So if you think about how government makes revenue through taxation. They can tax two things. Let's call them entities. An entity can be a person, right? An entity can be a business. There's the two things that get taxed.
Are those the only two things the government tax? You're saying the government's
Well, they may
tax
they may tax other
entities.
assets like revenue, like land and things like that, like assets. They may tax other areas within operations of the country itself, but
Yeah.
predominantly you're taxing either a corporation or you're taxing a person that is utilizing those resources still, right? So it still comes down to those two core concepts.
Okay, so the government, no matter the country you're in, especially in this context, they can only either tax you as an individual, and I'm
Yeah.
guessing same thing for like lawsuits, if there's problems with the business or with the sole proprietorship or with you as a person, or they focus on an entity, a corporation, is what you're saying, right?
A corporation or sole proprietorship, a business, whether it's incorporated, whether it's owned by one person as a sole proprietorship, whether it's a partnership, the different legal forms of a business, but you're essentially like we can't tax a house. I can't tax a fridge. I can't tax a tree. They don't make money. They
Hmm.
cost money, but they don't actually generate money. So we have to tax things that generate money. Those are people and businesses. They actually create within our monetary system a flow and exchange of goods and services or flow of funds.
So even employees who pay taxes are still almost seen like a generating business. They don't just know it, but like they're making income, and
Correct.
that's the reason why they are taxed.
Correct. And then the government exchange gives us services for that tax, right? So they build roads, they build schools, they build hospitals. So that's what the exchange and the relationship between citizens and government or between corporations and government is that it's but also be a mutual exchange for value.
Okay. So now the government sees you as either an individual or a business, right? From the financing perspective, is the bank also seeing you as an individual in the sense of, oh, I want to get a loan? What are they looking at? So I'm a
Yeah.
business owner. I after the discussion with you, stage two is to walk up to a bank. What data are they looking at? What
Sure.
credit records are they pulling? Is it mine? Is it that's the
So you're asking, I'll elaborate on that. So you've asked a couple of questions in your one overall question, and that is, so I'll start by saying we have essentially two kinds of financing predominantly within the banks themselves, and that's going to be personal finance, which is for individuals, and we have business financing, which is for businesses, right? Whether it's a corporation, whether it's a sole proprietorship, it's irrelevant. It's still a business. People in business have separate accounts. You have separate divisions of the bank you operate under. You have separate interest rates. You have separate terms of loans. They're very different requirements, okay? And that's because the legality behind what a person can do, what a business can do, are different. So you have different forms of financing and different requirements of financing. Okay. So when it comes to business financing specifically, it's similar in a way to personal financing. So financing in Canada is income based, right? If you want to buy a house, we have to look at what income you make based on your income you're making currently, also based on your current expenses like car loans, student loans, things like that. We can take the difference and say, well, how much new money can we give somebody, right? In a form of a new mortgage or a new loan. Same kind of concept applies to businesses, but now we're focusing on the business itself.
But I haven't made money though.
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
Because you said it's income based.
Correct. So when you're already existing operating business, we work on verifiable income. So you've been operating, so we're going to say, okay, since you're already open, you're already operating, we need to look at your last 2 years performance, and then we'll take a look and see whether your business can support a loan structure and a repayment, meaning that can the business show us that it can pay the loan back within our underwriting guidelines, okay? But then there's startup financing, which is separate.
Okay.
Startup financing is for businesses that are not open yet. They're projecting income. So you work on projections, and the banks and our underwriting team, they actually have a lot of data on what every industry should be making, right? So they use that data. If my projections are saying my business is going to make $1 million in the first year, and their data says Harvey's only going to make $100,000, obviously my numbers are a bit too aggressive, okay? And then that would decline my application.
You're saying the bank already knows what the maximum amount of money they're going to give to you based off general data they work on.
In a way, but what I'm saying is,
so you can't go to the bank doing like a particular niche and asking for $1 trillion, right? If the bank is not,
it's got to be logical. It's got to be logical. Like I can't like. Sometimes I even get some clients where they'll say that we are pulling information out.
People don't know there's a cap.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So I had a client come to me last year, and in her case, she wanted to open a restaurant. And she was adamant to me that she was going to make $1 million in her first year. Okay? $1 million revenue. And
$1 million as a restaurant in the first year.
And I'm like, and I don't get me wrong, I've seen restaurant owners with $1 million in revenue, right? And they're not
in the first year.
Not in the first year, but they're very long established businesses. They've been trajecting over time to build that cash flow. It's not as simple as I'm going to open my doors, I'm going to get $1 million and do the next 12 months. That's not how it works, right? So we have to have logical, well thought out, well planned projections and a business plan, and showcase our ability to actually achieve something, showcase our ability to pull off this plan that we're saying we're going to do, showcase our ability to that we actually have some business acumen within our thought processes and what we're presenting. If we do those correctly, we have a higher chance of success. But we have to be very logical as well. Like if we're illogical in our request, again, remember, it's the bank, their job is to protect their money, the money of shareholders that are giving money and investors that are funding those banks. So that's what their job of underwriting is to protect the risk of losing money.
Which is very similar to what you do, right? I remember the conversation we had a couple years ago. And so when you are being approached by a business owner, are you also trying to pre-qualify them based off what you know the bank is going to be looking for? Because that woman who is expecting to make $1 million in the first year, she doesn't have access to the data you have access to, right? And like this requirement thing that the bank looks at before they approve you for a loan. So are you also pre-qualifying your clients, just to give the audience a more perspective on what you do with your clients initially?
Correct. Yeah. So I have two sides to my business. So one is that I help my clients come to these logical determinations. So if we have an illogical request, I can't help at that point. I have to tell them I can't help them. There's nothing I can do for that
You're
person,
Superman, bro.
right? No, not always. Remember, it's not my money. I'm not the one giving it out. I'm asking somebody else on your behalf for their money, right?
True.
So we have to come to logical. So I can help with, and I have my consulting service where I help create business plans. People help them with their projections. We pass this projection that I create off to my accounting team that will vet my projections as well.
Mhm.
So that way we actually have a stamp saying, because I'm not an accountant by trade. I may have worked with numbers. I may understand a certain thing by certain businesses. But we try to leverage the tools that are available to us. And then we take that presentation to a bank, to a credit union, to maybe the Business Development Bank Canada, which is a BDC. We take those to institutions that have an appetite
Hmm.
for the kind of business that you are looking to start or that you're operating already, and they want to fund in that area. So every bank or every lender has a portfolio, a niche, a
So you
mandate,
can't just go to
right?
any bank and think they're going to say yes to your request. There's specific banks that fund specific niches of business. Is that what
Um,
you're saying?
yes, in some cases, and in other cases, is that banks think of their loans as an investment portfolio. So they change the weight of their portfolio. So, for example, gas stations can have a really good one to talk about. Gas stations can have an environmental footprint. They can have environmental risks to land.
Hmm.
These are things that can create risks to loans. And banks will look at things like gas stations, for example, and they'll say, "Hey, listen, we have too many in our portfolio right now. With the risk weight is too high because they're trying to keep within all the loans they give out a balanced portfolio of risk still, right? Underwriting is risk. So if that's what they're trying to do, they may say, hey, listen, for the next couple of months, we are going to scale back. We don't have the capacity to give out because we can't take on too much more risk in this industry sector. And that changes from time to time. So part of my job is to continue to network with my banking partners and understand where are you lending this month or next month or what are you looking for.
What is
So we
changing?
have ongoing trainings and meetings with them that are constantly trying to keep us up to date with what's the latest that they are trying to achieve within their mandates. And then when I have someone like yourself that comes to me, I say, hey guys, great. I think these partners can help us. Let's go start talking to them. But to do that, we have to have certain things in place. So we get those things in place. We reach out to them. We start doing the presentations with them. And then that's how we kind of move the discussion forward to saying, can we go through the steps to navigate an actual deal that can close on the table? And they want to, like, their business is to give up money. They want to give up the money.
Hmm.
Like that's their business, their job. That's how they make money. But at the same time, though, they have to protect themselves while doing that, and the risk is on the people giving out the money, right? So that's where we have to find that balance.
So we have to change the mindset that the bank doesn't want to give us money, right? The bank always wants to fund business. That's
Correct.
their job, to fund business.
The job is to fund anything. So what I'm saying is that I think a lot of times, we have this negative opinion of banks, and sometimes, in some cases, maybe we've had a bad experience with a person, but we demonize the entire institution, and I think that's a little bit unfair. I think understanding that, remember, their way they make money, like all of us have holdings within. If it's a pension fund with an RSP, whatever our investments are, there's going to be some
1K.
holdings of banks, right?
Yes,
It's
true.
going to be a part of your balanced portfolio,
True.
which means that in Canada, we have a pretty strong portfolio of financial partners that are working with us. And their business is giving out money. So they want to give out money. They just have to do it in a way that protects them and it protects their risk of the money not coming back. So to do that, we have to understand it's like having a good negotiation. Obviously, a good negotiator knows what's important to the other party, not what's to me,
But your clients have to trust
right?
you, I guess, because at this point you might have to tell them add no or add yes or try to actually open their eyes. But if they don't trust that what you're
Absolutely.
prescribing
Absolutely.
is not just like you don't have an hidden agenda to not qualify them for the loan, right? They have to trust that you're giving them valuable
Yes.
information from data, from statistics, and even informations they don't see.
And it's not a guaranteed process. Remember, I'm not the person signing off on the loan. I'm the one helping you present for a loan, right? So I tap into my expertise to try to make an argument. In many cases, I get my argument through. In some cases, they say, no, we don't agree with you. And that is their right. So we try to find somebody else that can partner. But these are conversations that we have ongoing with our client at the beginning so that they understand the process. And the process, even if you go to a bank and you apply for a loan, you can still get a decline back. If you apply for a credit card, they can say no, right? If you apply for a house loan, they can say no. Maybe we don't meet
But
the
I think the
requirements for that
chances
time.
with you guys is a higher chance of like, I mean, like I believe so much in saving time, and it all boils down to not wasting time going to the wrong bank, talking to the wrong people, right? So you save your clients time of how do you communicate the fact that, hey, I'm also trying to save you not just time but also effort of not wasting, like going to the wrong places,
Correct.
right?
I don't also want to be doing things where I'm not going to be able to get compensation for it as well. So I want to take on files that I'm pretty confident can go somewhere. I want to help as many as I can. I'm always going to give advice to say, hey, listen, if we're not ready here today, here are things that we can do tomorrow to kind of get us to the point that we can actually.
That's where that trust comes
right?
in.
So we want to help as many people as we can, but I'm as an individual, I can only take on so much capacity. So if 1,000 people come and see me, I may not have the time to actually work on 1,000 files, right? But that doesn't mean I can't help them. I can still guide them, but I may not be the person that.
But
can
you want to
actually do
go
the
after the
transaction.
best people who have the best chances of winning, right? The goal is getting these business owners money to go chase their dreams, chase their purpose, right? And you want to focus on the people who have the most chances. Is that what you're saying?
No, we don't want to mislead people. That's what it comes down to. We want to be transparent, honest about what your chances actually are. If I look at someone's idea or opportunity, I don't feel like there's enough time or not enough built up yet, I will say that and say, hey, here's things that we can do to get this to a point that we can try to go somewhere with this.
This has been an insightful conversation. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
The trap that we want to avoid is that concept of spend money to make money without thinking about the risk of that. Every dollar spent has to be done with a plan of money out, money in.
Can you make money without branding, brand identity setup, marketing? Does that have any correlation with financing?
The first thing we do when we're going to finance a business is search that business. If I cannot find your footprint, then I will have questions as to how you are sourcing your clientele. Think about this old concept of business like a simple mom and pop shop, like a storefront. A sign is a brand reflection.
As an employee trying to transition to the business world, what would be the 5 most important things you want to get right as a business?
The first one is going to come down to.
And we're back. So, Avi, how would you recommend budgeting and planning for a business? Like we established earlier, there has to be that budgeting to an extent of a lifeline. So now we have a lifeline. How do you recommend maximizing budgeting, planning, and those other skills?
That's a simple and difficult one at the same time. So understanding your overall cost, understanding your long-term costs, short-term costs, knowing how much money you have to float, how long can you run this business for, without a ton of revenue coming in. These are important, but also I think the trap that we want to avoid is that concept of you got to spend money to make money without thinking about the risk of that, or this concept of build it and they will come. And I'm not saying that those things aren't true. What I'm trying to say is that we have to do that by saying, okay, well, if I spend money, that's money I don't have to run my business on. So if I oversupply my inventory, for example, if a retail store, oversupply my inventory, if I spend money and I don't cost control my my setup cost to open this new facility I'm opening up, if I spend money on consultants, I don't have any kind of guaranteed metrics on what I'm getting back on them. This is money that is now out of my pot that I have now lost, that I could have been put in towards investing into my marketing, my social media, and other areas to grow awareness for my product or service. So this is where I think being a little bit frugal in the sense that you are looking for value for every dollar spent and keeping that in mind, that's very, very important to say, if this expenditure needs to be done now, and what if I did do it now, what am I getting for every every dollar spent has to be done with a plan of money out, money in, right? So we're running a business to make money. So what are we getting in return for the costs we're taking to start up that business? And if we have that mindset, it makes our planning a bit stronger, a bit risk averse. We try to hope that we're getting enough information and enough details to cover as much of the risk that we can have foresight to see as possible. And I think that's a really good way for any business to run. It's a little bit efficient, it's lean, it's fluid, it can be reactionary. You can keep aware of what's happening in the market, changes in government policy that might impact your business, changes in demographics that might impact your business. These are areas where you constantly want to monitor and evolve your plan moving forward.
So we do branding, we do marketing, and I also know that is like a very expensive part of business, right?
Mhm.
And you're saying budgeting, you're saying planning. How do you justify, or what would you say is the importance of branding, brand identity setup, marketing, having access to graphics designs and all of those
Mhm.
things, especially with the cost that comes to it?
Yeah. That's actually a simpler answer. People have to know about your business to be able to take advantage of your business product offerings or service offerings.
Very
If
true.
they don't know who you are, or if you can't stand out from the pack, it's very hard to build that volume that you need for revenue to be able to continue to grow your business, right? So it becomes actually quite an important piece in saying, here's who I am, this is what my brand is, my business is. These are our value, these are our mission statements, and this is how we are different from our competition, right? This is really, really important getting that information out there. So things like the service that your company offers is actually vital to that, especially in the saturation that we have with online representation right now. My industry, especially in real estate world, there's Canada is one of the most heavily saturated with real estate professionals
Yeah,
in
it's
the
like a
world, right?
choked market
Yeah, there's
space.
a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So how does one stand out? It's going to be through having a very strong representation that is unique and reflective of who you are, not a copy of what somebody else is doing.
Hmm. And I tell clients every day, I tell them like one way you stand out is by having a distinct logo. But then they're like, oh, what is the importance of a logo? Or how does a logo tie to my balance sheet? Or what is the relevance of a website? So when you go to fund a business, is there any direct correlation with, oh, how packaged is this business? How branded is this business? Does that have any correlation with financing? So
It does.
it does have
It
and
does.
what in what sense does that play out?
The first thing we do when we're going to finance a business is search that business. If I cannot find your footprint online, then I will have questions as to how you are sourcing your clientele. It doesn't mean that every business needs to be on there. Like, let's say, for example, I'm a niche engineering firm, or what I do is so specific. I can potentially start that level of service directly with my network of partners that I have, because they have a niche, they have a need for it.
Yeah.
But at some point, for me to scale and grow my business, I will need to reflect the services I offer, the quality of work I do in an online format where other businesses that I want to grow into can see who I am and they can see the work that I do. Right. So I think one of the key goals of online representation is to be almost like that old school grassroots boots on the ground kind of
Hmm.
logic, where
Hmm.
shaking hands with somebody
Yeah.
allows them to understand. You have a conversion, you have a conversation, you're going to be able to talk, you're going to be able to connect with somebody. If you take that same logic to the online
Line
world in the
space.
space,
True.
then that's kind of the focus, is to allow an insight as to what your offerings are, who you are as a business operator or business owner, and what your goals of service are.
Like I was telling a client, I'm like, you have to have a marketing budget, right? And it's like, how do I defend the justification of a marketing budget? And it's like, where does that come in? Is it before starting the business? Because you're saying, you said something, you made a statement. You said, do you build a business and they would come? Like that's a wrong philosophy. So where does the essence of factoring that marketing cost, paying a graphics designer, paying this, is it even important? or is it post revenue? Can you make money without branding in 2024? Like I know you need it. It's very important. Every business needs proper branding and marketing. But
Yeah.
from a financing perspective, is it like is it important? Like if you were starting a business right now, would you spend money on branding and marketing?
Yeah, I think I think every business needs it. I think if we use think about this old concept of business like a simple mom and pop shop, like a storefront, right? Well, yes, I can open my doors and the people in my neighborhood will see my sign go up, but my sign is a brand reflection,
Hmm.
right? We have to like if I have no signage, nothing around my door, I just open my door, no one knows I'm open.
True.
No one knows what I offer.
True.
So that is a form of branding. So if all we're doing now is going from that street branding and now enhancing our offerings to a much larger population, which is what businesses want. That's where the benefit of online representation has really been able to allow businesses to thrive and also compete more, is to reach a larger audience. I
So
think your success with that is going to depend on how targeted that approach is, which is where your expertise comes in,
exactly.
right? Not
So
just with the styling, but with the implementation of a plan.
so you're saying everybody in the long run, right? Everybody has been branding, everybody has been marketing, even the mom and pop shop like 20, 50 years ago, they all had a form of branding. It's just that now it's all on the internet and it's all digital
Mhm.
branding, which everybody needs.
Stores still give out flyers because they're
Exactly.
marketing their
Exactly.
services and keeping front of
Coupons,
mind. Coupon, all
coupon.
these things are just different forms of branding and marketing. And
And you're saying it's important to budget for that. It's justifiable if I come to you and say, "Oh, we spent $10,000 in marketing this year." Are you saying a business could do that and not get it wrong? And it's like it's not a wrong thing.
so it's not the dollar amount. I think the dollar amount is linked to the type of business, right? So, for example, if you're a high yielding business that can make a lot of revenue potential, then that dollar amount can be heavier. If you're going to be a business, they're trying to maximize the you're maximizing the return for dollar and you have limited funds at the beginning,
Yes.
then you still need to do some form of marketing. You still need to let people know about your business, the service you're offering. It's just you have to be a little bit more conscious about how much you're spending.
Hmm.
But that's where we have metrics. We have metrics now, especially with online, where we can see what our return for dollar spent is. And as we try new things, and there is a bit of trial and error with this, but as we try new things, we see what the return that we say, hey, maybe this is working. Maybe let's try continuing and maybe putting a little bit more because we're getting value back for the money we're spending. At the end of the day, the amount anyone invests into their marketing strategy is going to
Yes.
be dependent on the return that they're actually quantifying that they're getting back for the dollar spent. It doesn't matter whether you're printing a flyer or whether you're doing Facebook advertising or Google advertising. It's all going to come down to money out, money in,
Awesome.
right?
Awesome. So I think you did good justice to that. I want us to spend a bit time on this last, not the last questions, because we still have two questions we do ask all the time. But this is like taxation. I know you're not like a tax expert, so this is like a disclaimer. But then my question is, if you, given what you know, was going to approach taxation as a business owner now, right? What are the cues you're looking at? What are you thinking about? Is it even important to consider the fact that you could get back money from tax? You know what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
what would you say, or how would you approach taxation as a business owner?
Okay. So first, I'm not an accountant, so I won't be talking about taxation itself. That's not my area of expertise. And everything I'm talking about today, these are just my opinions, and these are things that I've learned over time that I wanted to share with your audience. And what I so I can't comment on the direct question you asked, but I can say that where I see businesses struggle with what has been done with taxation.
Hmm.
Okay, and what I'm trying to say is there is the life cycle of a business. We start a business to create an idea, to express our passion for something, and to make money. But at some point, like if I was working in a job and I'm going to take a retirement at some point, I'm going to transition from this business. Either that's going to be this business will be taken over by my children or my extended family, or I'm going to sell this business, what would be called transition planning. And this is where how you work with your tax advisors impacts how you value your business, right? So
True.
if in many cases tax advice is designed to optimize your tax risk, or essentially reduce how much tax you pay within the boundaries of the tax law. Okay. But what ends up happening is that if you're overly optimized and you want to say sell your business and you haven't worked with your accounting professionals to say, hey, maybe you want to show them more value on the books in the sense that we're leaving more profit in the business, we're not taking as much out. If we don't do these things in a measurable way, when you go to sell that business, one is that if I may not be able to finance it for somebody that wants to buy it because maybe the financials that we're seeing, they're not strong enough for financing, right? And in the same context, if it's not financeable or investable because we can't see the data to prove that business is worth what you're saying it's worth, you actually devalue your business. So I think making sure that you are having ongoing regular conversations with your accounting advisor, because they are advisors, they can do a lot more of this optimized tax. They can tell you
True.
things that
True.
like they teach me. What I'm sharing with you, a lot of what I've learned is coming from the professionals. So I'm saying that you lean on them as advisors and not just people that are filing your taxes, and have them involved in your long-term planning so that way you are optimized to maximize the value of your business, right? So when you're running your business, maybe you want to save money, more money in your pocket, which means try to optimize your tax or lower your taxation. But when you want to sell your business, you want to move on from your business, transition from your business. In those cases, somebody else is going to come in and we have to come to new metrics on what makes a business successful. I think in those areas, you can work with your accounting professionals to say, hey, let's really value this the most we can, invest in our business where we need to invest. And the same thing goes for maybe you want to invest money into your business to renovate the business. Maybe you want to make it look fresher, newer, nicer, so it has more value when you sell, right? So these are all kinds of things that your tax experts can guide you on. And then along with that, going to be potentially the expert of someone that trades in selling businesses. They can get together and they can put together information for you to make sure that you're well positioned for your transition planning. And that's really, really important to do. I think that's where many businesses forget, and they realize is, oh, I'm exiting my business now, but I haven't done these things, so I can't get what I want from my business. And
Hmm.
that's unfortunate because a little bit of forethought, a little bit of
It
advice,
could have been
you could have
avoided,
changed all this
basically.
beforehand, right? So
True, very true.
yeah,
So, are you saying taxation is very important only when you're going to exit the business? Because I keep getting signals as to somebody else coming in, checking their account. So maybe the next or the first 10 years, nobody else has come in. So it's like it's when you're exiting, you look at taxation. Is that what you're saying?
I think taxation is important all the time. What I'm saying is that how you the strategy of taxation that you optimize for your business can change depending on the life cycle of the business, where you are in the life cycle of your business.
Okay.
And that's why I think if I were going to talk about the concept of taxation, again, I'm not a tax expert. So, but where I think any business can improve is by working with your accounting professionals more holistically, as opposed to just worried about my taxes are being filed, right? So having more of an in-depth ongoing conversation,
Knowledge.
knowledge transfer, you're being advised to optimize your business. And this can be done for any business, doesn't matter small or large. The larger the business, the more important this advice is, but smaller businesses can benefit from the same kind of strategies.
So let's run a case scenario because I do like working with case scenarios. What's the relevance of your age and the taxes you pay, or age doesn't play any game in taxation?
Tax is a mathematical calculation, so it's based on income. So we have what we call tax brackets. So depending on the company, size of the company, or an individual, if I'm a salaried individual, depending on how much money I'm making, they have different brackets for how much you pay in taxes.
If I'm going to exit the business, right,
Mhm.
and I'm not paying tax because I am writing off expenses, how does that still make my business valuable?
Well, that's where you're potentially devaluing your business, right? So if you're showing when you're doing things like write-offs, what you're actually doing is that you're creating expenses. You're showing that the business isn't profiting enough, and we work on profit.
Hmm.
right? So there's
So,
revenue,
so
there's
you
expenses,
don't
there's
want to write
profit.
off, is what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying is that how much you write off is debatable. And that, again, depends on what the strategy of that business is for the time of the life cycle of that business. And
So,
that's where your tax expert will come in and talk to you about that.
so what would you say is the biggest factor in how long of a credit history you have, or how good of a credit history you have?
Um,
Or let me reframe the question as,
for
what role does the credit history play in financing? And because
yeah,
you said there's personal financing
yeah,
and there's the business financing.
mhm,
So I don't have good credit, for example, would that affect
absolutely.
financing?
Your credit report shows your historical track record of meeting your contractual obligations. If we're not doing that, and we're already showing that we're not meeting our contractual obligation, I'm not paying my credit cards on time, I'm not paying my bills the way I'm supposed to, then why would someone give you more money? Right? Because now the risk is on them. Once they give you that money, it's
Given what
more
they
easy to get it
know,
back,
even,
right?
right? They know you
So
have a bad track record.
correct.
So why would they give you money?
Yeah. So that's where it becomes vital to any loan application, that you have to show, if you want to borrow money and do things without your own money, which we have to do in life, we have to maintain strong credit, because that shows that, hey, I take my credit seriously and I'm trying to maintain my repayment history. Now, life circumstances do happen. People get laid off. Big issue reason for credit challenges. Sometimes, in many cases, divorce. Um, Life does happen, but the credit history reflects this, and it showcases trends. It showcases, I can see, okay, I can see blips. I can see, okay, this individual missed some payment in this window of time, but most of it's been pretty good, right? Where you start getting challenged, we have a history of closed credit cards, written off accounts. I can see regular, consistent payment history across many accounts. These are not one-offs anymore. This is a lifestyle issue. This is going to be um, an individual that's not taking their obligation to their contractual obligations seriously, and that becomes much more challenging to finance.
So, is it very important that everybody takes out a bank loan to start a business? And if you're not
No,
going the route of a bank loan, what other options are there from a financing perspective?
yeah, I think we touched on this earlier. I think ultimately you need money to run your business, start a business. As long as you have that money, whether it's coming from a bank partner, whether it's coming from yourself, family, friends, private investors are investing in you. I think the structure of money that you get will impact your ability to succeed. So if you borrow too much money and we have too many payments as a loan, that could hinder
Can
your
you
business
borrow so
performance.
much money as a business owner?
Of course.
Give me a case scenario of borrowing so much money, and when is it so much money?
So if I'm borrowing money off projections, a really good example. Let's say I'm projecting my business is going to make $100,000 or $200,000 of revenue,
Yeah.
and I borrowed $20,000. But my actual revenue was $10,000. So now I borrowed $20,000 more than I actually made, or $10,000 more than I actually made. In that case, so you are now in a huge deficit. How are you going to maintain your payments? How are you going to maintain your obligation to the bank?
So you want to borrow. So you're
Right.
saying every business owner wants to borrow money, but make sure they make more money than what they're borrowing initially.
Of course. So the way we give out money for businesses is that we can give out a portion of profit. So you have to show so much profit for every dollar borrowed, and that
Is there a
metric is
number
different.
to it?
It's different by industry, right? So some industries require more profit, some require less profit, because the risk is different by
Almost sounds
industry.
like cost of ads. Like we think of that, like when we're running ads for our clients, usually there's like the 70 where we focus on like Google ads and like Meta. We focus on Google ads and YouTube ads. That's like the 70%. And then we focus 30% on Meta ads. And the idea is, what's it costing? Like, what's the cost of ad spend? Are you saying that's the
Similar.
same way for every loan you're taking in business? Like, okay, I'm getting $1,000 from this bank. I have to make, is it 10% more, or is it 20% more or
It
is
could be
it
30, it could be 40, it could be 20.
because there's
It
also the
varies.
interest to factor into the cost of that loan, right?
Well, and that's what we're factoring in. We're factoring in like the cost of the loan. You have to have so
Mhm.
much profit to offset the cost of the loan, which is going to be the principal and interest repayments.
So if I was going to make a business and my projection for revenue is 100,000, like with Jopamall, our first year we're actually nearing that $60,000 in revenue. If we were to go back and actually raise funds to get $60,000 in revenue, what number, if you were on our team, financing and advising finance, what number? Okay, now we made 60,000. How much should we have borrowed for that 60,000, or is it a
Well,
cost?
ideally, you're not borrowing anything, right? You only want to borrow what you need. The borrowing should be done with a purpose.
So if you can avoid borrowing money to start your
Of
business,
course, like if you can naturally, organically grow a business,
but
that
what's
you
the
just
idea
increase
of
your
other
profit
people's
margins.
money then? There's this saying of getting other OPM, I think it's called, using other people's money as a more efficient way, or getting a loan from the bank as opposed to risking your own
Correct.
capital.
That concept comes from someone that has money that doesn't need it. So if I want to buy, if actually a great example here, we have a team here working with us here today. If we wanted to buy a studio, let's say I want to buy a commercial condo and I had cash to buy that, I have a choice. I can use all my cash. When I use my cash, I don't have it for anything else. I can't reinvest with my cash. Or I can borrow money from the bank, take as much as they'll give me to buy that commercial unit, and then I can keep the difference for myself to reinvest in my business or do other things, right?
Awesome.
That's where that concept comes in. But if you don't have money to do something and you're borrowing money, that's a risk to you because borrowing money can also put your business under because if you can't keep up with your payments, the bank's going to collect their money.
Awesome. So we're rounding up, and there's just two fast questions we run through. The first one is like Avi, I know you're an amazing guy. Like I would, any business would be lucky to have you on their team, strategizing, consulting, giving advice, right? So now, as an employee trying to transition to the business world, what would be the 5 things you would focus on and get right? So, what would be the 5 most important things you want to get right as a business owner?
So you're saying I'm currently employed,
Yes, you
working for
have
somebody, and I want
salary.
to transition to
Exactly.
one of my own business.
Exactly.
So first one is going to come down to prioritization. How much do I actually want to do this? If I really want to do it, then that means I'll adjust my spending to save as much as I can to invest in my business. That's the first thing.
Prioritization.
Prioritization. You got to prioritize something that maybe means less vacation, less trips, less Starbucks. I'm a big coffee guy. I want to go out and spend $5 coffees. Maybe I'll do a little bit less of that and make coffee at home and take it with me because this is you investing in yourself.
True.
That's what that is.
True.
You're going to invest yourself financially. You're going to invest yourself with knowledge. You're going to research as much as you can about your business idea, test it, write a plan for it, research it, try to poke holes in it. If you can poke holes in your plan, you have improvements that have to be made, and you want to poke as many holes as you can because that now if you're building a brick wall, the stronger that wall is, probably the more likely the success rate you're going to have.
Back to that runway ideology.
Right? I think planning is the key thing.
So
I think
is that number 2? Planning? Prioritization number 1?
Yep. And I won't say that 1 or 2. I think they're equally important. Those are probably the 2 most important things that anyone needs to do. And actually, I think that's dominant. That's predominantly going to be it. Because that covers everything else. That
trickles down. Planning and prioritization trickles down to everything.
And actually, if I was going to say the third thing is to implement your team. Do research on people that you can lean on, support, tax advice, legal advice, branding advice.
So they should talk to me.
Absolutely, it's a key ingredient to your success. Every business has to be marketed, it has to thrive, it has to be showcased in the competition of all the other business around us, right? If you're in a small town, maybe you have less competition. If you're going to be in a huge town, then you're going to have a lot more competition of people doing something similar potentially. And even if you're not, let's say you have a brand new idea that's there's very low competition for, people still have to understand it. They have to learn about it. So that's where marketing comes in. These are going to be the 3 key areas, I think, if
marketing,
we're investing in our ourselves financially, in our planning for our business, and in our brand identity. That's going to be showcasing what our company is, a strong mission statement, setting our culture from the beginning. A lot of other pieces fall into place, and you're a lot more organized. The more organized you are when you start, the easier life is as a business operator.
That is priceless information. So make sure to, like you said, prioritization, planning, team structure for sure, focusing on marketing, focusing on your branding as well. So I love how you ended with marketing and branding, which is the last question. What can you say about Jopamall, given your interaction with myself over the last couple months, back and forth, working with us? What can you say about Jopamall, the importance and what it's like?
Yeah, it's easy. I've provided a few clients recently as well to help you with that.
Thank you for wonderful recommendations all
yeah,
the while, all the time.
Jopamall offers a lot of value for service. It's giving you a lot of bang for your buck. I was very impressed with the caliber of the work that they do. The time they took to try to get to know my business, my clients' businesses, and trying to help them achieve their goals. I think that's what Jopamall does really, really well, and they do it in a way that's very, very affordable and economical for business, especially compared to the competition around Ottawa. It's a great way to start your journey, learn more about the branding space, and it gives a lot of value for money spent. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much. So if people wanted to reach out to you now, if anybody, like again, like I'm recommending Harvey any day, anytime, anything financing, like let him say, no, I don't do it, but reach out to him, anything financing, anything, if you have his contacts, reach out to him. So he's going to be giving out his contacts on how you can reach out to him in a second. Avi, over to you. I want to reach out to you. I want to work with you. I want that network. How can I reach out to you?
Yeah, you can always reach me. My direct number is 613-864-5093. You also have our office website, themortgagemasters.ca. Our company name is Centum Mortgage Masters. JP, you're putting together our website, my own personal website coming out within the next couple of months. And then by email as well, which is Harvey_Dhillon at centum.ca. That's HARVEY _DHILLON at CENT as in Tom UM.ca.
And we're going to be putting these links below or anywhere around these videos as well. His contact number, his profiles on social networks, so you can reach out to him. Avi, is there anything you want to say to the audience? Like, I don't know, maybe you got this in your shower this morning, or what's on your mind? What do you want to pass across to anybody who could come across this clip now, 10 years from now?
Yeah, that's easy.
And maybe if they travel back in time too.
Yeah. I'm a big dreamer. Put in hard work and dream, and be as research as you can. Whatever you do, think out of the box, and try to keep fluid. Understand that whatever you're doing when it comes to the business world, our economy is changing. It's evolving. Trends are changing. Technology is always evolving. Try to keep on top of these things, and hopefully that leads to a great, successful journey for you. And network with business owners. Business owners are some of the most optimistic, fun people to be around. They support you. They understand your struggles.
True.
As a business owner.
True.
Have a community of kind of self-help, and I wish you all the best for the journey.
Thank you very much, Harvey. Like, I always reach out to him whenever I have a question. I to drag him on our team several times, but just because of the value knowledge, right? It's valuable knowledge, and it's always ready to help you no matter the stage you are in your business growth. Avi is the guy to talk to for anything financing. Sorry about the loss of your granddad, by the way.
Thank you.
That's a strong experience, right? But I like how you handled it, and you showed up here. I thought you were gonna even cancel, which is very justifiable. But like, he lived a wonderful life, and yeah, he's lucky to have a fantastic son like yourself, grandson like yourself. Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you so much.
It's good to connect with you.